If you write with your left hand, there's a solid chance that a few hundred years ago, someone would have looked at you and thought you were something worse than different. They might have thought you were marked by the devil himself. Not because of anything you wrote, not because of anything you did with that hand, just because of which hand you naturally reached for. And this wasn't some isolated superstition in one weird village. It's baked directly into the words we still use today, in multiple languages, without most people ever noticing. Let's scale this up because this fear runs deeper than folklore. Around 10% of the world's population is naturally left-handed. For most of recorded history, across Europe, parts of Africa, and the Middle East, that 10% lived under real suspicion, sometimes mild, sometimes violent. This wasn't a passing trend. It shaped religion, law, language, and childhood education for centuries. So how did using one specific hand turn into a sign of evil? It starts with a word you already know: sinister. In Latin, sinister simply meant left, a neutral, spatial word, nothing more. But Roman augurs, priests who predicted the future by watching birds fly, always faced north while doing it. That meant west, associated with sunset, decline, and death, landed on their left side. Birds appearing from the left were treated as a bad omen. Over time, sinister stopped just meaning left and started meaning evil. Here's the part worth sitting with. The ancient Greeks were so uneasy about this same idea, they didn't even want to say left directly. Imagine being scared of a word so badly, you just rename it something nicer. That's basically what happened. The Greek word for left, aristeros, actually evolved from aristos, meaning the best. Scholars believe it was a deliberate euphemism, a way of flattering the unlucky side in hopes of warding off its bad luck. Meanwhile, the Latin word for right, dexter, went the opposite direction entirely, becoming the root of dexterous, skillful, capable, trustworthy. Two hands. Two completely different linguistic destinies, purely based on which side of the body they happened to be on. Religion piled on hard after that. Multiple historical sources describe the devil specifically as left-handed, supposedly baptizing his own followers using his left hand instead of his right. In parts of France, folklore held that witches greeted Satan avec le bras gauche, with the left arm. Even the Bible got pulled into this. In the book of Matthew, a well-known verse warns against letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing, subtly reinforcing the idea that the left hand represented something to be hidden or distrusted. And the Jewish scholar Maimonides went further, formally listing left-handedness as a blemish serious enough to disqualify someone from certain religious roles. By the time Europe's witch trials began, this suspicion had teeth. Using your left hand could genuinely be treated as evidence during a witch trial, including, according to some historical accounts, during the Salem witch trials specifically, where left-handedness could be used as one more mark against the accused. A hand you were simply born favoring, treated as courtroom evidence. And this wasn't limited to Europe. 19th century sociologist Robert Hertz documented Zulu communities in southern Africa where children's left hands were deliberately scalded with boiling water, a horrifying, real practice meant to physically discourage its use. Different continent, different century. Same underlying fear of the same hand. All right, rapid fire, because the persecution didn't stop at folklore. It followed lefties straight into modern science. In 1903, criminologist Cesare Lombroso published claims that left-handed people showed up in criminal populations at over 3 times the rate of normal society, treating handedness itself as a red flag for deviance. Well into the 20th century, children who naturally wrote with their left hand were physically forced to switch, sometimes through punishment. One recorded account describes a teacher striking a student's head with a dictionary every time she caught him using his left hand. Even the French word gauche, literally meaning left, became an English loanword meaning socially awkward or clumsy, embedding the same old bias directly into everyday vocabulary. Modern research has completely reversed this narrative. Multiple studies have found zero credible link between left-handedness and any of the deficiencies once assumed, and some research even suggests left-handed and ambidextrous people show increased interaction between brain hemispheres, potentially linked to enhanced creative thinking. International Left-Handers Day wasn't established until 1976, meaning organized, positive recognition for left-handed people is barely 50 years old, compared to centuries of documented suspicion before it. Every one of these threads points to the exact same pattern we keep finding in this channel. Humans have a long, well-documented habit of turning ordinary, harmless traits into signs of danger, armed with nothing but assumption, repeated often enough to feel like fact. So, somewhere out there today, roughly 1 in 10 people is quietly living with a trait that used to get children's hands burned, used to count as evidence in a witch trial, and used to be baked directly into the words for evil itself. Not because of anything they did, just because of which hand felt natural to use. Makes you wonder how many other normal things about you would have gotten you in serious trouble a few centuries ago. See you in the next one.